Both being alone, isolation, and feeling alone, loneliness, are common to the human condition, though they'll be nonetheless devastating. Although already a growing concern before the COVID-19 pandemic, these challenges became more front and center within the context of public health measures and existential crises that surfaced in its wake. Despite a clearly increased global awareness, we still don't know enough about why some are more vulnerable to social disconnection than others. For instance, those with serious psychological state tend to experience chronic isolation and rates of loneliness that are double those within the general population, yet the explanations why are less clear, making it a struggle to return up with any concrete, long-term solutions. Isolation and loneliness aren't the same. We consider the previous as simply being alone, occasionally a welcomed solitude, while the latter may be a distressing state of being disconnected from others. One may be isolated but not lonely, or lonely but not isolated. The two are only modestly correlated at best. In turn, there are different reasons one might experience isolation, loneliness, or both. Yet it's been hard to spot clear and consistent contributors, a minimum of partly thanks to the myriad ways we conceptualize and measure social disconnection across studies, likewise because the idiosyncratic ways people experience it. What's largely missing from our understanding are first-person perspectives that highlight the breadth and depth of experiences of social disconnection. Identifying the shared sources of human concerns like loneliness and isolation is clearly a worthy pursuit. Yet we discover, time and again, that such pursuits don't quite pass muster when it involves truly helping a given individual and their unique experience. There's no such person named average in any case. Taking a step back, we'd question the utility of identifying correlates of social isolation and loneliness at the group or nomothetic level, especially when it involves finding actionable solutions to the matter. As one could argue is true with understanding most psychological phenomena, an idiographic approach to identifying specific properties of a given individual is at the very least complementary to the quality training and discourse within the field, i.e., in formulating generalizable theories that apply across humans. First-person accounts using qualitative research methods can further shape the narrative of what it means to experience something as human as social isolation. There's most to be told, so little to lose by unpacking the lived experience of maximum social disconnection. A recent paper published within the Journal of Mental State identified key themes of the experience of loneliness among people with serious psychological state, Ludwig et al., 2022. Findings provide a telling example of how personal accounts can highlight contributions that complement, and occasionally transcend, the extent of the group. Although symptoms were identified in concert contributor to loneliness, contextual factors, like financial and other resource limitations, were also highlighted. These structural determinants of disability and quality of life among people with serious psychological state, a highly marginalized group, are often ignored within the literature, given the standard emphasis on internal factors measured in traditional psychiatric research. In another recent study, authored by researchers and persons with lived experience of psychosis, experiential themes were extracted from first-person accounts across the clinical stages of illness, building network maps highlighting interconnections among individual narratives, Fuser-Polly et al., 2022. Social isolation, loneliness, and social anxiety were central experiences before the onset of a disorder, before the paranoia and voices following a full psychotic episode. In later stages of the illness, social isolation and loneliness re-emerged as central to the narratives, tied to the stigma of being diagnosed with a heavy psychological state. Stories of recovery, often absent from the published literature, also uncover themes of the social isolation experience. Individuals expressed feelings that the worst had passed, an improved ability to deal with symptoms, and increased occupational functioning, yet these areas of growth didn't reduce ongoing feelings of loneliness and isolation. First-person accounts of the lived experience of psychological challenges like these, from early isolation to the ostracism related to recurrent psychotic episodes and ensuing stigma, highlight the advantages of diving deep into the phenomenology of individual narratives. While every human is exclusive, a network narrative approach like that applied during this study shows an innovative thanks to link idiographic with nomothetic accounts of human experience. Furthermore, this study exemplifies how people with lived experience can contribute as central decision makers within the research, challenging academic ableism pervasive within the field and setting research questions that more directly address the issues of these with lived experience. When it involves the multifaceted nature of social isolation and loneliness, who better to ask and answer key scientific questions than those experiencing it firsthand?